Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the MSS ADA podcast. We are live from Hyannis. Good afternoon, gentlemen. We have joining us Keith Mangan, the president.
I think we just lost your sound there, buddy.
Matt's gone.
Yeah. So, Matt, we just lost you here for a little bit. Hopefully you jump back in here pretty quickly. We lost your sound. The wonders of technology here. And as you know, we tried to do this from nationals a couple weeks ago, actually more than a couple weeks ago now, but those issues that come about. So we kind of figure out as we go. And I think Matt's ready. I don't know if you can hear us, you jump back in here, Matt, but Mark, if you want to tell us, thanks for coming on and joining us and tell us a little bit about, life out in Grand Forks and what you've been doing these days.
Life out in Grand Forks. It's cold. It's colder than it is in Hyannis. So we're waiting for another blizzard to come rolling through here while we're gone for a couple days. But it's interesting to be here for the state conference. The timing of it fits really well around our North Dakota one. Yep. To be out here for a week with you guys is great. And I'll be home for a day. My wife's giving me grief already because I'm home for a day and then I leave for North Dakota State Conference.
I got it.
So
I got it.
She the question she asked me, she said 4 days with Massachusetts followed by 3 days in North Dakota. She wanted to know if I had enough polos and quarter zips to go around.
Listen, well, no one knows better about quarter zips than Matt and I. So that's our thing here.
I said I got it. I said AD's nationwide. Got it. We're all right.
Absolutely.
So, excited to be out here though.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate you coming, and we have some different questions for you as well. But if you want to tell us a little bit, we know you flew out the other night. And if you want to tell us, the word is you got to do a little sightseeing.
I did.
Tell us a little bit about your sightseeing so far in Massachusetts.
Yeah, I'm kind of a sucker for history and anything geography, and when I go places, I like seeing stuff, even if it is boring or mundane or different, right? But anything that's interesting. So. I landed in Boston, and my wife and I had been out in Boston a couple years ago, but we just stayed in Boston, right? So we did the historical stuff there. Of course, caught a Red Sox game,
naturally,
all those things. But hadn't been outside of Boston, so on the drive down, I made sure to stop in Plymouth and wandered Plymouth a little bit, and sent our boys a picture of the Rock. Had to take care of that.
So tell us what. Let me hear about your.
How was the Rock?
I'm sure hearing about the Rock, what was it like in person?
I tell you, I think I'd had enough people prepping me for what to see before I got there.
Yeah.
So,
or what not to see.
Or what not to see. It was underwhelming.
Yeah.
The best equation I could find for that was, the first time I was in San Antonio, you go to the Alamo. Right?
Yeah.
Because the Alamo is this big, huge, mythical, compound. You get there and it's a little church building, right? So that's what it was. But it was cool to see it. But I got out of there quickly enough, and our flight landed in Boston early enough that I decided I was just going to cruise through Hyannis and keep driving right through to Provincetown.
Cool.
I drove all the way out to the lighthouses at the tip of Provincetown and checked that out. And then earlier today, I kind of went around Hyannis and got honked at in the middle of the Kennedy compound.
Nice.
Stopped at a couple beaches, couple lighthouses.
Nice.
The things we don't have in North Dakota. And so I feel fulfilled now.
Yeah.
So now
there you go.
Now I'm
there
here
you
to
go.
help you guys out with the conference.
And now with between the podcast tonight and the classes that you're teaching tomorrow and stuff. So if you could tell us a little bit about what classes you came out to teach and you're also presenting at our luncheon tomorrow. If you maybe a little sneak peek of what we have in store.
Yeah, and actually, really had to pivot on the luncheon presenting. Originally we were asked, the podcast group was asked in 2019 to come out. Way back for you guys when Michelle was running the conference, right before Mike was. And the idea behind it was that the three of us would run our podcast live.
Yeah, absolutely.
During that, and in the time since then, we've lost one off-duty AD and lost another one, and you guys are stuck with me. And so I think what I'm gonna try to do tomorrow. I've been blessed to speak at the last 3 national conferences, and I'll try to take a little bit of what we're doing with core value coaching and turn that into a little bit of a rah-rah. So the courses I'm teaching, though, I'm actually pretty excited. I'll teach 508. And I've somehow become the law guru among North Dakota ADs.
Okay.
At our spring conference every year, I teach 2 law courses, and we just alternate between 6 and 8 and 4 and 10. And I was scheduled to teach 6 and 8 this year in North Dakota anyway. So to be able to do 8, you guys are getting the prelim, right? My test run.
Nice.
Before I go back and teach it on Saturday. And then Thursday morning, I'm teaching 719, which is the leadership course. And that's actually the one that I just co-edited with Daryl Nance.
Okay.
It's the one I teach at the national conference every year. So, and I think I might have kind of talked Kara into doing that one for me instead of giving me a new one.
There you go.
Give me one I'm familiar with. So hopefully you guys will get my A effort out of those 2.
Well, and Matt and I, when we started, Matt's a more seasoned podcaster than I am, but when we started this and talk a lot about listening to off-duty ATs, and some of the things that we enjoyed of talking about this. One of the things I really liked was the debate that you guys always has about sports movies and whether or not it's technically a sports movie or it's not. And especially during COVID, I spent a lot of time, while I'm out doing work in the out with my headphones in, and my wife yelled at me, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm listening to off-duty ADs, and I'm getting caught up and stuff like that." So it's definitely a worthwhile view and something that we all loved. Listen to it here.
Yeah, and I stand by that. It's the Hoosiers debate, right? It's the one that I bring up. I stand by that. Hoosiers isn't a basketball movie.
No,
it's a redemption movie that includes basketball, right? So, no, it's and actually that's where that podcast was formed from. Mike and Ryan and I were fortunate enough to be on the NIAAA Publications Committee at the same time. And at that time, there weren't many on the committee who would hang out for a beverage or 2 after our meetings.
Yes, absolutely.
And so we found the 3 of us sitting at a bar at the hotel and just talking, right? And it was just ADs talking. And like every other AD conversation, you'd sprinkle in current events and you'd sprinkle in past references, and then you'd be right on to something current, and then there'd be a little venting about something, and then you'd be right back to, in circular. And at one point, I think it was probably Ryan who said, we should just be recording this and broadcasting it. And
we're doing a show already and not actually putting it out there.
It took us about a year to get there, but we finally did. And I think one of the things that we did early on was we said, look, we're going to do this more for the 3 of us, right? We're just going to have the conversations that we like to have with the 3 of us. We'll maybe beef up the professional development piece a little bit and try to have a topic. But if nobody listens, nobody listens. And it grew quickly. And which was the reason for my initial invite to come out here. And we certainly enjoyed it. We haven't put an episode out now for about a year. I think we did one. Over Christmas, we talked about maybe doing one during the basketball tournaments here after Iowa. After Iowa got both men's and women's teams in, Mike was pretty giddy about that. But we keep kicking around whether or not we want to fire it back up again too. And one of the things that's been a lot of fun for us to see, we take a little bit of pride in being the first ones to the high school AD space. And it's been interesting and exciting to see the number of high school AD podcasts that have exploded after ours, and all have a little different slant and a little different angle and different voices, and that's been a lot of fun for us to watch.
So and I got into this, Matt, if you want to talk a little bit about how you got into it.
Well, it's kind of funny because some of the stuff that you referenced, Mark, are really the same things that happened with me. I've got a football coach at school who I actually went to high school with, and very similarly, we sit, we talk, we talk quite a bit about the high school scene in our South Coast area. So, middle of COVID, and we said, hey, let's do something productive. Let's do something that, for us, it was just like, let's get some of this stuff off our chest and put it out there. And it grew and it's gained a following. And, so we decided, hey, you know what, this is working well. I talked to Keith, obviously as the president, I said, let's do this for the association. And it's been well received. Great way to put out your message and talk about current events and things that are happening within the state organization. So I think it's great.
And I got to jump on with Matt as a guest with his podcast and love his coach does. They talk food and breakfast and coffee. And again, some of the same thing you guys are doing. You're doing it for yourselves. So, and then we kind of pitched this idea to Fran Witten, our executive director, and Fran was like, "Oh, that'd be great." You know what I mean? And awesome. And Fran is he's our technology guru. that we go to for all that stuff. Yeah, he was just walking by here a second ago.
Actually,
so I
you know
wanted
what?
to-
He just handed me a stone tablet. He was on. So,
good. That's where
yeah.
he did his first script on for his first
Yeah.
podcast. So oh no, there he is. Right there. He just got caught. He just got caught. So
That's too funny.
so Mark, one of the things that is new to Massachusetts, and I think you guys are doing it already, is that we just started a statewide playoff system, where before it was traditionally you participate in regions in the north to south, central, and west. So this year's the first year we're doing our statewide system. How do you guys do your state tournaments? How does that work for you guys?
Yeah, so a couple differences between North Dakota and Massachusetts. So the first one is, we've always been state tournaments.
Yep.
For everything. And part of that is driven by our number of schools.
Okay.
We only have 140-ish
Yep.
high schools, and several of those are tiny.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of sports that require multiple co-ops. Schools. I still laugh. Even when I was in high school, 25 years ago, one of the teams that we played, when it was done with the co-op, there was about 8 town names in that co-op, right? So you smush them all together.
Can't fit them all in the shirt.
Right. And so we've always had the state tournaments. For every sport except football in North Dakota, we're split into 2 classes.
Okay.
We have Class A, Class B, and there's an enrollment line.
Yep.
And above it, you're big. Below it, you're small. But then, you qualify based on your regions.
Yep.
So in Class A, we have 2 regions. Top 4 teams in the East, top 4 teams in the West.
Yep.
And in Class B, it's 8 regions.
Yep.
And you have to win your region to get into your state tournament.
Yeah.
So,
Awesome.
and it's just been ingrained. Our small school, our Class B boys basketball tournament has been our biggest tournament since ever.
Yep. Yeah.
Empty out the towns, and true Hoosier style,
Yeah.
right? You empty out the towns, and we've gone through some tweaks in recent years now in terms of how you qualify for the state tournament.
Yep.
Because we're running into some imbalances in East and West.
Yep.
Trying to figure out how you can get your best 8 teams to the state tournament while still representing the whole state and those types of things. But it's great. I mean, it's been a wonderful way for our entire state to be represented.
I get it. So when you bring up Hoosiers too, I don't know if you know this, but Matt's he's quite a seasoned basketball, not only an AD but a basketball coach as well. So that's his passion.
It is
him coaching basketball. And I went to school, the birthplace of basketball at Springfield. So I went there a couple times as well. Not just because I liked it so much, they asked me to leave and then come back. But I did my undergrad, my grad degree there as well. So we had a lot of fun. So
it's definitely interesting being the AD and the basketball coach. I think give a lot of guys that do it a lot of credit because again, you come to school in the darkness, you go home in the darkness, but very, very rewarding at the same time. One of the things I wanted to talk to you, Mark, a little bit about. Talk about the travel through statewide.
Yeah,
is that an issue whatsoever, or do people, mention that when you're doing what you're doing?
We don't because it's just so ingrained in how the state runs. So, so in Grand Forks right now, I'm in the big schools on the east side of the state, and we're a little more congested. So, Grand Forks has 2 schools. South of us in the West Fargo metro area. I mean, that's half of the schools in our conference are right there.
Yep.
That's about an hour 15 drive for me. But the longest drive that we have within our conference is, probably about a 3-hour drive between schools. Prior to being in Grand Forks State. And out on the west side of the state, travel is just a way of life. We had a region team that was 5 hours away, and so we would start our scheduling with your week.
There we go. We on now?
Right.
Perfect.
Yep. Same thing.
I
Same
get
thing.
you.
Yep. It's Fargo, I think, has 3. We have 3 places that have like conference halls. But the other 2 are so
All right.
advanced.
All right. So we're live. We're back here again. So Mark, sorry about the
No idea when I stopped.
yeah.
Right?
So and then we gotta yeah, you wonder about the technology here and something that we struggle with. You know, I had alluded to before about the issues with at the national conference. Sorry, folks. We got some folks here right now as well who are joining in and having a discussion right here, right next to us. So, but thank you again for bearing with us. We got Matt back in here as well, Matt. So sorry about that, buddy.
Listen, this is just to your point, Keith. Listen, I'm going to tell you right now, and I know that Mark will probably speak to this. You know, when I first started podcasting, I recorded everything because it's like, you know, when you're live, anything can happen, right?
Absolutely.
So, unfortunately, you know, doing my own private one, we've had almost, you know, no glitches.
Yep.
When we were at the national, we struggled for Wi-Fi. Here we are at, you know, our annual in Hyannis, and we're struggling. Again,
No,
you
and
find your way
absolutely.
through it.
Well, it's, you know, we'll get through here. We got a few minutes left here of stuff we want to cover here, but you know, those are those things, and very much, and I'm sure Mark would agree. You know, when working as an athletic director, that as much as you have things planned out and practice things and do things and you're ready to go, then all of a sudden, boom, this thing happens, and then you know you're punting and you're trying to run around trying to make things work.
Absolutely, got to adjust. Yeah, and this is something we never tried with our podcast, right? We never attempted the live piece. It was always recorded, and even at that, we'd have times where somebody's house would drop, and we'd have to call back in and patch in and re-edit it out later.
Yeah.
So this is an aggressive attempt. Right? Running live.
Yeah, and when we do our Mssada podcast, we're frequently doing it. Matt's in work, I'm in work as well, so we're also, although we're in our offices, you know, my office faces the hallway. So students like we're always right around lunchtime. So kids are coming by. I started pulling my shades now. That's in knocking. Some kids heard that I'm on a podcast, so they're like yelling out in the hallway, and they want to get you know either throw me off or whatever the case may be.
You got to do the wave and point, right? You wave and then you know you point at something, right, to let them know that you're busy, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
One day we just decided to jump in head first. I was doing it with, like I said, my football coach, and I said, hey, you know what? It's us. We're doing our thing. We're talking about what we love. Let's live. Every else that I know was doing it live. Let's try it. And ever since then, that's what we've been doing. But you know what? Hey, we're back on. We've got a ton of stuff that we'd like to talk about with you, Mark. Keith, let's talk a little bit more about the general session. And I want to get to the point of, Mark, you're all over the place, right? Talk to us about what it's like to travel and do what you do and do it at a high level.
Yeah, and you know, and I don't know that I've been all over so much. I like to go places and I like to help out. And, you know, one of the more enjoyable things that I've been doing is teaching and presenting at the national.
Right.
And that was one of those where, you know, like most people who get involved, it was almost accidentally. You know, I was doing some things in North Dakota. I'd started a blog in 2015. I think I'd started a blog, and one of my posts on that blog went viral, as they say, right? It went crazy, and that led to an invite to be on the publications committee. And that invite to the publications committee happened at the same time as the NIAAA's fourth strategic planning committee, and they needed somebody else from Section 5, and our old executive director, Ed Lockwood, who's in the Hall of Fame now, is a big wig, and he said, hey, I've got this young guy, and so I got thrown into that and realized, you know, I really enjoy collaborating with people around the country, and the one thing that I missed when I went into administration, and I haven't shied from this at all. I didn't know if I'd be a good leader or not. You know, I went into administration because I like public education and I wanted a bigger paycheck.
Yep.
Right. I mean, both my parents are teachers, and I watched them both teach for years beyond the retirement age. They didn't feel like they could afford to retire, and so I jumped into it for that purpose. But what I realized right out of the gate was I miss teaching.
Yeah.
And so being able to do these types of things, you know, whether it's at a state conference, whether it's at the national, gives me the opportunity to keep teaching.
Yep.
And that's what I really enjoy out here. And, you know, I jokingly kind of told you, you know, when I'm speaking at your banquet, It's not going to be so motivational. It's not going to be so rah-rah, right? That's not my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
But I can't help myself in terms of presenting information.
Yeah.
But so that's really what I like doing, and the opportunity to go to different places, like what I did out here, or just went for a drive and wanted to check the sites out. I do that at the Nationals too.
Yeah.
Whatever's in the area for me to go see, and go be a history nerd for a little while,
right.
or whatever.
So was history your subject that you taught?
No, I was an English teacher.
An English teacher, okay.
I started as a history major, and funny story, my very first undergrad course in history was taught by a professor who graded 50% on tests and 50% on attendance.
Okay.
So you had to show up.
Yep.
And she lectured all day, every day.
Yep.
And I was bored to death.
Yeah.
I was bored to death, and it was my first class. And I said, there's no way I can do this for 3 years. So I was a double major with PE, and I went to talk to my PE advisor, and he was just saying, what else is you like to do? What else are you interested in? And I've always been a reader. I've always been a researcher.
Yep.
And so he sent me down to the English department and changed majors, and I'm a double major English PE, but the history part never left.
Yeah.
Right. So,
I
still love
it's what you love. That's your passion too. No, that's great. Yeah. I feel like English. I couldn't even imagine being an English teacher. That was something that was always a struggle, which we had a lot of fun with and things like that too. But and I taught PE, worked as an athletic trainer for many years, and then went back to school for athletic administration, which is something that I always kind of liked in public school. That was my passion. That area of working with kids. Where a lot of kids I was in school with are in the college level, university level, things like that. But high school is where I knew, that thing is what I want to do. Maddie, would tell us a little bit about how you got involved in this.
Well, within my there's Fran again. Within my background, I started out through the discipline office of the assistant to the dean of students.
Okay.
Was coaching at the time football and basketball, and the athletic director had retired after 28 years, and I ended up getting the job at about 24. So been at it a little while, but again, you guys referenced and you said the word love a couple of times. It's something that you love to do and work with kids and make their situation even better. So it's certainly rewarding, but I feel like we are on that hamster wheel, aren't we?
You're right.
Yeah. But you have to love it. I mean, you have to love kids,
right.
And you have to love teaching, because otherwise there's just not enough pros in this job to go around. Like it's not enjoyable to go to work and have everybody else tell you how bad you are at your job and how things should be different. Right. I mean, the only way you can weather that storm, whether it's the stereotypical angry parents, or whether it's the coaches who are frustrated about something, or some kid who's a fantastic kid but isn't good enough to make varsity, all of those things that you deal with. If you don't love kids and love sports and love teaching, it's just not going to work. And so I think that's the common ground for all of us in the profession.
Yeah. I look at our profession too, and I think, my line, and it's a little cliche, but it's the truth, is you have to surround yourself with good people, right? So whether it's a support cast at home, your family, your significant other, but also your colleagues, right? So there's a lot of people who do what we do, and I feel as though I won't speak for the two of you, but I gravitate to a certain type of ED, and those are the ones that are extremely involved and care a lot about the well-being of kids. So. I mean, I don't think you go wrong when you put yourself around those type of people. Absolutely.
Yep. Matt, why don't you, I know we cut in a couple of times here, but, and I know your passion here is, especially where you're our leader in this group. Do you want to take off and cover the, we have to read our statement about our sponsor at this point. And of course now,
this is when it'll glitch.
This is when it'll glitch now. So why don't I step in here right now so if you're looking for help fundraising for your team or for your school, look no further. Gold Athletics is the premium fundraising company that meets all of your needs. They are currently working with many schools in spring sports. Gold Athletics has all kids in different fundraisers to fit your needs. Don't just take our word for it. Ask anyone who works with Gold Athletics. Gold Athletics is a group for you, and those guys will be here this week. And again, that wasn't read as neatly as Matt usually plays that, because that's usually his role, but with the glitches here and everything like that. But the folks down at Gold have been great. they're our newest sponsor, our main sponsor right now. So folks who are out there, if you're still on listening, if you haven't turned us off yet because of the in and out here, please stop by the vendor session. Those vendors will start tomorrow night at 6:00 in the vendor hall. And, that's what pays for our conference, where we have, I think we're one of the few, if not, one of the only states that still has a conference that's it's free for all ADs. So by taking care of your membership, and then the sponsorships from our vendors, which really takes care of our conference. So we really want to make sure our ADs get out and visit the vendor hall and get around and meet some of our vendors.
Mark, we want to thank you for putting up with the two of us, and certainly this internet issue. Yeah. But Keith and I had planned on doing some pop-up little, 10 to 15 minute podcasts through the remainder of the week. We might be a second guest in that venture.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I'll be around. I'll be around.
So for speaking, if you're reading the screen, says too, for Mark Rarick, for Keith Mangan, and I'm Matt Trahan. Please, thanks for coming in and joining us, and hopefully we'll see you again soon. Thank you, Mark.
Absolutely.
All right.
Thanks, Mark.